Welcome back to the Trending Communicator. I'm your host, Dan Nestle. Let's be bold, unconventional even, spiky, as my friend Mark Schaefer would say. Job descriptions and roles as we know them are obsolete. That's right, I said it, they're obsolete. I'm talking about comms and marketing roles, but I think the same thing can be said for most of the so-called knowledge workers today. Now, before you say anything, yes, AI is a big part of this, as it should be. Everybody knows I'm pretty AI obsessed on this show. But you know what? It's an accelerant. It's not a cause. AI is an innovation engine. It should enable us to not only be more efficient, it should and will increasingly be a co-creator and co-explorer, helping us to change the way we work and what we produce, and even the nature of what we can contribute. So that means it will make the bullet-listed fixed job description more of an obstacle to progress than a checklist for career advancement as it currently is. The fact is we can go so far beyond what a senior manager of such and such or a vice president of such and such is or is supposed to do and discover new tasks that don't currently belong to anyone. What does that do to recruiting? What does that do to performance reviews? What does it do to functional boundaries, org structure, corporate culture? I could go on, but I think my guest today can help us understand all this and more, especially when it comes to the changing nature of employee engagement and culture change. He's another one of those rare birds or weird unicorns I like to talk about so much. A man who started out as a UX and web design specialist, became a tech entrepreneur, still is, and ultimately found his calling where technology, digital experience, and employee experience kind of intersect. For almost 2 decades, he's been helping enterprise clients with digital transformation and strategy for internal and external communications, connecting employee experience and culture to brand experience outcomes. Now, as the CEO of Local Wisdom, he and his company are solving problems through talent and technology, sharing their wisdom and shaking things up, as they say on their website. He's a well-known speaker, he's a teacher, he's a mentor in the comms world. He's a board member of the IABC. He's active in multiple professional organizations. You'll see him out and about, conferences, schools. Please give a warm welcome to my good friend, Pinaki Kathiari. Pinaki?
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm doing a lot better now after that introduction. That was a fabulous introduction. Thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here sharing the mic with you again.
Yeah, man, for the second time, because you came on in the original iteration of the Dan Nestle show, which is now the Trending Communicator, but better. And I want to bring people on who actually are trending communicators, who are thinking about the future, who have their foot and their hands and their brains in that space that's changing and volatile and kind of scary to a lot of people, but can help us make sense of it. And what you've been doing with employee experience, with internal communications and technology writ large, I mean, this is something that I think all communicators can benefit from, and I want to hear about it. As we talk about, for lack of a better phraseology, the future of work here, right? The future of work and corporate culture and et cetera. Now we've had a lot of conversations about this, and I don't want to lead you too much, but I think that there's just so much here that people are interested in. So, first I want to give you another chance because you were on before, but that was such a long time ago. Can you give us a little bit of an intro? How'd you get to where you are? And tell us a little bit about Local Wisdom, and then we'll dig right into the good stuff. Well, not that that's bad stuff, but we'll dig into the good stuff.
The juicy stuff. No, all good. Pinaki Kathiari, I'm CEO of Local Wisdom. I also am the co-founder of Resource Hero. Local Wisdom is a digital communications agency. Like you said, a group of talented folks who are, I'll just call them unicorns, because we try to find the right type of people who can do multiple things, but also we know how to treat and nurture unicorns because they're a special breed of people. But essentially, Local Wisdom helps communication teams stay above water. It's really our goal here. We have a set of strategies that we could implement, and we have execution. So we're basically bringing together strategy and execution to help y'all sleep better at night and a little bit easier. And stuff like that. I have another company called Resource Hero, which is my product company. It's a app built on top of Salesforce, and it's meant for managers to help forecast their people's time into the future, so we're not burning them out, essentially.
See, that's what I mean by weird unicorn. You've developed apps. We've talked about your coding kind of fun that you have coding. I don't know, fun and coding don't always go together for me. But you started off as a developer and a techie, and here you are dealing with what some people would argue is the softest of skills, right? And I don't like that term. I don't like calling interpersonal relationships and employee engagement. I don't like calling it soft in any way, but that's what it's known as, right?
It's hard to do.
It's really hard to do those soft things.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
what
was the transformation? Yeah,
it's a funny story. It kind of goes, I don't know, from like very young age. Like I always wanted to be an engineer growing up because my dad was one, and then come high school, I don't know, I got into things, good stuff. I got into DJing, I got into drawing and writing, I got into poetry. So suddenly I wanted to be an artist and a writer and a poet. And my dad was like, "No, you're gonna go into engineering." So I started off engineering. I still love engineering, and it was about the time where the internet was coming about. Shows you how old I am.
Yeah.
But given that, I was like, "This is cool. I should go into computer science." So I switched to computer science and still had this like love for design and whatnot. But the school that I was going to at the time, they didn't allow me to do both computer science and art. So I ended up doing computer science and psychology.
Ooh,
which is fascinating. I think squiggly career paths and just bringing together just different passions is I think really special. And at the time doing computer science and psychology, they didn't make a great deal of sense when you kind of think about what jobs are out there that involve computer science and psychology. But then a few years later, as I entered the job market, the world of user experience just opened up. And then user experience led into just all types of experience design. And when you think about experience design, that just kind of goes everywhere. So yeah, I do enjoy still picking up the pencil and paper and sketching. I do enjoy coding every now and then. I do enjoy DJing still. And yeah, so I think I kind of get to bring all of this stuff together.
What was the particular bridge, if there was one, or like the thing that happened that said, what, I think this is really suitable for internal comms, for employee comms, for culture change, and for cultural, for corporate culture building. Was there something that kind of put you over the edge or moved you to the dark side, as we in comms would say? But what got you going in that direction? Because going from a app developer to a communicator and a combination thereof is, again, a weird unicorn thing to do.
Yeah. It was kind of like, I think there was like three things that brought me there. It was like, one, when Local Wisdom first started, we worked with more external communicators because there weren't internal communicators at the time. And while working with them, we started seeing that over the years, they were getting certain internal communication roles, jobs, and responsibilities. Because from the earliest stage, we're putting something out externally, we should say something internally about it. So it came that. And then as it started becoming more of a thing, we started seeing just the role internal communicators come out. And we saw that they're just not getting the same amount of love from a resourcing perspective as external communications and marketing. And then when I became CEO of Local Wisdom, it's when I really put my own internal communications and culture building to the test, because I really had to change things up. And seeing what communications and culture would do to an organization and the bottom line, and just what it feels like to walk into the office or log into that Zoom call or whatnot, felt something so special that I'm like, that my heart started going into it, which is why you probably hear me talking more about internal communications and employee experience and culture building so much, because I've seen what it can do.
Yeah. And just to be clear for our listeners, I said you're CEO of Local Wisdom, but you didn't start out that way. You started out as, within the organization, and you became the CEO, what, 2017-ish, something like that? Yeah.
That's correct. And
Yeah.
yes, 2017.
How'd that happen? I mean, you started off in UX and in strategy, and then just kind of,
Yeah.
kicked everybody out, booted them to the curb, took over. Was it hostile?
That's how it works. No, it wasn't. It wasn't so hostile. It was basically like, the company was started by a few colleagues from college.
Mhm.
Like, we all graduated computer science around the late 90s, early 2000s when that tech bubble burst. So we're like, what do we do now? And kind of brought in, and I kind of saw that there was this need for a company to do both good design and good technology together. At the time, no one was really into that sort of thing. So we set off for that. And we're just like four guys, just hanging out, doing stuff, exploring things that we just enjoyed doing, and, trying to see if we could make it into a service. And it just started growing. We were just like, I think from one employee to 6 to 9 to 12, and now we're about like 30, 33.
Yep.
And around 2016-ish or so, we realized that, one, it's getting really difficult for the four of us to get together and make a decision. Two, if someone were to ask one of us for something, it's like mommy and daddy. If they asked one of us for something and didn't get the answer, they'd go to someone else to get the answer they want. And three, it was just kind of becoming more of a problem that we didn't have an aligned overall vision of where we're all kind of taking it, because we all had like slightly different variances of where we wanted to go. And so, I proposed that we need a CEO model, and put myself in the ring, knowing that it's a difficult job, and it was put to the vote, and that's how I came here.
Interesting. No Game of Thronesy stuff happening. Nothing.
No Games of Thronesy stuff. No, I did kind of go through my ranks at Local Wisdom. Like, I think I first started off as director of user experience, then headed up production, then sales and marketing, and then here.
So a widespread or kind of broad baseline career that led to a wide purview that put you in the CEO seat. It's just interesting to me because you didn't start off in comms, right? A lot of the people, or even in marketing, I mean, a lot of the people who are listening, and certainly people we know, they did communications in college, or they went to B school, and then they came out and they're like, yeah, I'm in marketing, I'm in comms, and that's their path. But increasingly, I'm seeing more and more people who kind of edge their way into it, sometimes unassumingly or unwittingly. In my case, I've told the story before, but in my case, I was in like, who knows what I was doing. I was teaching, and then I was doing like recruitment, and then I was like working in a consulting company, and I was thinking, okay, I'll be in the HR world maybe, and it was just not fitting. And I just hit the reset button and said, the only thing I can really do is write. So I'm going to be a copywriter. And this was a long time ago, but when I'd put myself out there as a copywriter and managed to convince people that I actually was a copywriter, got jobs and got clients, before I knew it, it's like if somebody had to put a name to it. It's like, what are you doing? Well, I mean, you're copywriting for sure, but actually you're a marketer now. And then you look at the clients that I was increasingly getting, and it's like, oh, you're actually doing comms work. So I've always been straddling, or kind of in that zone that bounces between marketing and comms. And certainly it started off with the writing stuff, but it grew into more, project management, leadership, and then eventually had my own little agency. And then sort of then I moved back to the corporate world, and I was running a marketing and comms function for a while. So that's kind of the path. And eventually just, now I never feel comfortable saying, yeah, I am a comms guy.
Yeah.
But I think I own it now. I think that's kind of, that's the coat I'm wearing. I'm a comms guy.
There's a reason for that, I think. There's a reason for that. I think it kind of goes back to what you started off this podcast talking about, job descriptions.
Yeah.
Right. Like, the world of work, once it puts us in the little boxes and things like that, and saying, this is what you're doing, this is what we want you to do. But, here we were just following things that we enjoyed doing. Right. And I think that's the special place, is like, it doesn't feel like work, because I'm just enjoying the things that I'm doing, right? It doesn't feel like you're doing marketing because you're just writing stuff and you just enjoy writing.
Yeah.
And so people see that and try to peg you in a box or put you in a place. So we as humans do that because there's the psychology. It's like we need a way to categorize things, to remember everything around us. And yeah, like I wasn't in comms, but I think the thread for me was probably around psychology. Because psychology is all fascination with like just the human experience and neuroscience and the human mind and how it works. And communication is such a core part of how we interrelate. So it's, so there's psychology even from like a UX standpoint. How does it feel to use the system? Psychology when you read the words, like, or do they understand me? Is this connecting with me? And then psychology actually when you're talking to people.
Yeah, neuroscience and psychology are threads that continue to pop up or come out in the conversations that I have with communicators, whether or not they realize it or not. But there are certainly some specialists who are like, yeah, but like my friend Dr. Laura McHale, she is a neuroscientist for communications primarily, and maybe she started off as a comms person. She was running comms for a bank in Asia, and she's like, you know what? I kind of want to be a psychologist. And she went to get her doctorate, and then she discovered a program for neuroscience and went deep in that direction. Now she's arguably one of the world's only, if not the leader of the study of neuroscience for the industry of communications. And the things that she has kind of uncovered in her research and the what she talks about is so in line with I think your journey a little bit here, and just seeing it's not just about what we like, but like understanding the motivations and behaviors that cause people to react in certain ways, but also our own what's going on in our own neurophysiology that kind of leads us to lead in certain ways or behave in certain ways, et cetera. And, kind of put that all together. Communications is the glue or the kind of the ether that floats between and among all of us, right? That activates those, I don't want to say triggers, it's the wrong word, but it activates the way that we deal with these situations. It activates our skills. And, it sounds like you probably had that baseline when you started things off, but let's circle back here a little bit because you said it, and I do want to get into it, which is this whole idea that we fall into things that we like, or we at least you and I sort of created our own job in a way from doing the work that really kind of we started by doing this work and just sort of ended up being classified and being categorized. And once you're classified or categorized, then you're on a track, right? People like to put you on a track.
They like to put you on a track.
Yeah. And there's nothing that a compliance-minded person likes more than checkboxes and a list, right? And a percentage. This, and in the case of recruitment, or in the case of performance appraisals and review, it's just, okay, these are the 5 checkboxes. What's the percentage that this person has matched these checkboxes or exceeded them, whether it's their duties or their goals or whatever. And my perspective has changed a lot on this over the years. I've never been a big fan of performance reviews, and we could talk about that too. And we have indeed, but we can again. But especially now, where we have this opportunity to unleash not just ourselves, but unleash creativity, unleash possibility, and real innovation. Because for the first time ever, or one of the reasons, at least for the first time ever, we can use our natural language skills to effect massive technological advance, to help our jobs, to help creativity, to help efficiency, productivity, et cetera. And of course, that's all about AI, but not only about AI. What do you think really this is going to mean to this whole world that is so compliance and checkbox oriented, that, we've got so much like the room to color outside the lines now, and what looked like a connect the dots and a paint the dots picture is now going to turn into a completely different painting.
Absolutely. Probably literally and figuratively. Yeah. I think everything changes, especially as like we're getting deeper and deeper into this. Like the amount of power that we've had before AI in our back pockets was astounding compared to like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Now with the advent of AI on top of that stuff, it's we could code on the fly, we could design on the fly, we could write on the fly, we could ask questions and learn on the fly without having to do much. So it breaks structures, right? Like I think when you mentioned job descriptions, I got interested. I started like I hit up a new tab real quick and started like Googling when was the organization chart invented and things like that. Because we as humans in work like have been loving the idea of structure and assembly line and things like that. This starts to really break and pull apart the fabric of that because I don't need certain things, or I don't need to go off and do all this types of research. I have this at my fingertips. There's definitely some, like says, skepticism that we should still keep with regards to AI.
Of course.
But the core of it changes everything, just like the internet changed everything, just like the mobile smartphone changed everything.
Yeah.
This is probably a little bit more, dare I say, nuclear. It's more like, it's more powerful than all of those things. But even if you kind of even go back, like the engine changed our world, right? There's these advances in technologies that changed the path of humanity forever. This is one of them.
Yeah.
A really big one.
You know, in those past, a lot of those past changes, talk about the engine, you know, maybe the printing press might be a little bit different, but the advent of the steam engine, the advent of some degree of automation, you know, the changes were primarily labor related, right? I mean, when you think about like productivity,
you're right.
So it's like, okay, I have 100 workers that I need to build the car. Well, now I only need 7. So what happens to the rest of those workers, right? They have to get new tasks. They have to leave the company, or we have to, there's a lot that has to happen, but there's nothing they have to learn something completely new or just change, you know, their entire career. Now, if they're unskilled workers, they're portable. If they're highly skilled in this one very thing about, riveting something onto another thing, and I'm talking about this like I know the first thing about industrial production, I don't. But if that's their specialized job, then they're really in trouble because they don't have any skill set to replace what's happened. Now, I think this time is a little bit different and broader ranging because, you know, yes, we can see for sure the writing on the wall or the writing that's already in front of us that, okay, AI, certainly it can handle a lot of the baseline tasks. You know, no problem. It can do your proofreading, and it can do your first drafts, and it can do your press releases, and it can do your emails if you're so inclined. You know, it can take care of that. Whether or not it can do it well is another story, but it can do it good enough, right? And that then gives you, as the user of the AI, a couple of options. One option is, oh, it's going to do this for me. I'm going to keep quiet and just work less, right? And just pass off this work as my own. Of course, we don't want that to happen. We want people to be ethical. Another option is, okay, it's taking care of all this shit work that I don't like to do. That frees me up to maybe do more that I like to do. And you double down on the things that you really like to do, and you enjoy your life a little bit more and your work a little bit more. That's option 2. Option 3 includes option 2, but then it's like taking it to the next level, which is like, okay, it takes care of all these baseline tasks. It frees me up to do more. But wait a second, what am I going to do with that more? AI is also able, or it also enables me to do more with the more. So it's kind of like, gets a little meta here, but it's kind of like creating a cycle or a spiral, a positive cycle of creation and expansion. And, you know, I don't think everybody's going to necessarily go that route, but I think plenty of people are, and certainly creative people and people in the knowledge world that we're in will do it more. And when they start doing that, then you start to see things like, just a solid example would be a communicator or a comms person who is, you know, reliant on research to understand their audience and reliant on insights will say, okay, I can do a lot of the reporting. I could do some of the baseline work here with my AI. And then, you know, oh, hang on just a second. What if I give the AI a role that allows it to be, or that kind of makes it portray my audience? What if I do that over and over again? And now I have my own little research group. Wait a second. I can conduct the research, not to say that the expensive external research we're commissioning is outdated, but I can conduct my own research, get ahead of my assumptions, my validations, bring better questions to the table. And suddenly now I'm in insights. I wasn't in insights before. I was on the comms team. So this kind of radical expansion of roles and responsibilities, right? There's nobody saying, there's no kind of job description that says your job is now insights. But if I go to my boss and I say, look, I've developed this thing, we can get insights like for nothing, for $20 a month, right? We can get all kinds of insights, and I've worked it out. We can do it real fast. There's no real downside to this. Now suddenly it's part of my job, you know? And
you have to do more, right?
I have to do more, but it's not taking me much more effort. It did at first, but not anymore. And now I'm adding more value. I'm contributing more to the company. And there's no way currently for most enterprises to recognize that new contribution and to alter my path and to provide me with the opportunity to alter my path. That's where it sort of starts to boggle my mind.
Yeah, it's going to take years. It'll take multiple years, especially for like the larger organizations to adapt and kind of move and whatnot. I think we're still. It's so weird. Like I don't know if I never thought about this, but I think we're still in theory early adopters here.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like it's been so long, and that, you know, but in the kind of grand scheme of things, we're still early adopters. I think that you're right. You kind of hit a few interesting points there. It was like one where you talked about the past technological revolutions have kind of shifted labor workers.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think, is going after, I guess, intellectual workers, white collar workers, or whatnot type of thing. Because, you know, I could easily create bots and AI that could like run through strategy, create, you know, I could give it a framework, teach it a framework, and have it run through that. It does it very well. And it's not like perfect, like you said earlier, but I'll also say this, that this is probably the worst AI that we're ever going to use, because it's only going to get better from
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? If you think about the car when it was first invented, you know. But yeah, I think it does make massive rippling effects to people. I think, in one state, like in one aspect of it, there's certain physical labor that I think is now becoming more somewhat valuable because of it in that way.
Sure.
It's interesting. Like my son is going into, you know, he's senior year in high school, going into college. And last year, you know, junior year, as we're looking into colleges, and the advent of AI was one of the first times where I was at a loss of like, what should you get into?
Yeah.
Right. And because the world in 5-10 years is going to look amazingly different. In fact, like, you know, when we were talking earlier about, you know, like the career progression, you know, and somebody said, oh, you're an internal communicator. When you started, there wasn't an internal communicator. That role wasn't a thing, right? When I started, there wasn't a user experience, you know, position, right? So like I think technologies and things like that, or changes, creates new things. And it's hard to be able to foretell that, to like say, where should I go into?
Yeah.
So when I was talking to my son, I was thinking like, you know, I think you should definitely get into like something that you're passionate about, something that you're really interested, to get a deep expertise in it, and also explore something that's physical, that's going to have you outside moving about and things like that. Something that, you know, AI won't be able to do, but AI and robotics are coming together. So yeah, that's all that's all going to happen sooner or later anyhow.
Yeah.
But the thing is that in the world of the future, I think we definitely need folks who are human and have a deep expertise to be able to tell if the AI is wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing, because AI is not giving you the right answer. It's giving you the answer that it thinks you're going to like.
Yep. And, there's the whole Ethan Malik principles of, keeping the human in the loop and that it's always invite AI to the table, these kinds of things where we can work, you're supposed to work together with it, be treated as a co-intelligence and, but check its answers. And totally true. I think it's, I don't know how long it's going to be true, but it's for at least as long as we have something that needs to go out into the public and we risk our reputations and our livelihoods on that something, we're going to want to check it. Right.
It'll, for the most part, I think, and I'll go out on a limb and say, I think it'll maybe always be true because the basis of AI is learning off of humans and we still have to fact check humans.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll always do that. And there's some talk about, well, let's have the AI fact check the AI. And, that gets into this kind of crazy philosophical discussion. But
that makes sense though.
Yeah. But, I was thinking something you said as well about internal communications and just thinking about how it didn't exist years ago and now it does. And, part of that was a technology change. We enabled our teams and our companies with these platforms for rapid messaging, right? First it was email. Email was probably the first game changer in that respect. Then instant messaging, things like this where, you now have people who aren't sitting right next to each other can really kind of communicate what's happened really fast and kind of have conversations. And at the same time, when you have your executives want to tell the people something, you don't have to gather in a town hall. You can actually just shoot out an email. This is a long, long time ago, right? And now email's been with us for 30 years. I don't know, something like that, some crazy long amount of time. And it's, will never go away. It is, as my friend Robbie Fitzwater says, it is the cockroach of marketing. It will survive everything. We'll always have email. That said, when it comes to internal comms, right? I think you're right. This sort of technology started to really enable this kind of information flow, which needed to be managed. But at the same time, it took some innovator or somebody to say, wait, we can take advantage of this and actually, use it or kind of see the potential of this to help us build a cohesive culture. And that was a leap of faith or a leap of kind of understanding of the potential, right? And then of course, as technology advanced, various platforms were developed. We could make these things happen. Now that everybody's got a Slack or a Workplace or whatever it is, and Zoom and whatever other technologies. And now we can have tech-enabled or tech-enhanced communications inside, which requires, a much more strategic approach. At the same time, I think in parallel, the other thing I wanted to mention before I hand it back to you, because I'm being very selfish here in my own podcast, is, at the same time, somewhere along the line, it was finally understood that employees are a stakeholder group. It took a long time for that to happen. Employees were treated as, in some ways, like the whole, even the term human resources, they're assets, chattel to be traded.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's human resources are created for the business, not necessarily for
the people, right? So then, some people started to change that to employee relations, whatever. Even that is a little Orwellian. But the idea, though, that employees actually, when they're happy and when they're productive, and for good reason, right? When they're satisfied with their work and they feel that they're doing good work, a miracle happens in that your brand gets uplifted in the market, right? So how that connection, right? There's people like you make that connection. There's this really direct and measurable connection between, how well you communicate with your employees and engage with your employees to how well they advocate for your brand and become ambassadors for your company. So where I'm going with this, I think, is the future. We talked about job descriptions changing, and I think we only scratched the surface of that because I think I think job descriptions structure team structure, functions, everything is on the table. I'm not saying that accounting is no longer going to do accounting. What I am saying, though, is that, enterprising individuals within the company will figure out ways to do stuff that's outside of their traditional classic remit. And are they going to be pigeonholed, or are they going to be let free to run? And that will play havoc on the structure and on HR's capability to manage advancement and pay and, titles and everything that requires a really, really heavy compliance checklist. Right. So all of this put together is I think it's going to really, or maybe it already is going to play havoc on corporate culture. So where do you come in on this? And, where do you think it's going?
Yeah. Very good question. I think you're right. It's going to get much, much more messier before it gets better. And you got to kind of learn things, and it's going to take some people, some companies who are leading to kind of push through and test things out, because it's going to be all testing things out, trying things out, see what happens, what works and what doesn't work. So there'll be successes and there'll be failures. And I also think it's going to be interesting, kind of the long-term kind of aspects of how AI will change things, because I kind of think of certain like humans, right? For us, things get played out. We grow and we change over time. Facebook was cool once upon a time ago, right? And
I remember that.
It's right, right.
Of course.
So it was kind of it was things like that. And now Facebook, I think even people who are on it is it's not that cool, but it's the only place I have to connect with folks. It's just something has changed, and the environment around it has changed to kind of put it in that different light. I think employee experience has been interesting, because I think it's always been kind of rooted in some kind of business profit end all state, right? And the early days of user experience, it was all about utility. Let me make sure that people have what they need to do their job safely and without, getting hurt, so that, we don't have as many sick people or people taking days off. And then after that, it went into, all right, employee experience, let's talk about productivity. How can we get more with less? In the 80s, it started to get into more attraction and engagement. It was hey, we have a lot of other companies that are hiring the same type of people. How do we make ourselves more attractive to them? And even today, they're trying to still work out the structures, but it's still all rooted in the end all profit for the organization. Now, it sounds weird for me to say this out loud, because you're hey, aren't all corporations for profit and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. Yes, and I get it, but at what expense is really the question, right? And that's kind of where I'm working on or thinking about deeply. I launched a podcast, Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work? Mm-hmm. And just try to explore these topics of we've been doing things in a certain way for so long that let's just look into where that came from, why we do that, and is there a better way, or is this the right way to do things? So I think there is a lot of change, and what I'd like to see, if AI could do this for me, that would be great, or for all of us, that would be great, is if take up a lot of the stuff, a lot of the work, and if we could use that extra time to think of how do we take care of each other as human beings, not how do we take that time to squeeze more out to kind of get that next level advantage over the company. Because right at the end of the day, I think and I hope having a machine intellect might help us be more human and treat each other more like humans and not machines, which we've been doing all this time. This sounds weird and hokey pokey, but it's what is our meaning in this planet, right? Greater than our jobs and things like that, right? What are we here for? We're not here for the 9 to 5. Yeah. We're here for the human experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or am I totally going off the wall here?
No, I mean, it's there's a little bit of woo-woo happening here, but that's fine.
There's a little woo-woo there. It's true.
There was, I have this on my list of things to read today or tomorrow. The CEO of Anthropic just wrote this 15,000 word kind of very optimistic, beautiful piece about, I say it's beautiful, I haven't read it yet, but this optimistic piece about this glorious future with AI. And I haven't read it yet. I'm assuming. I mean, and I'm just gonna predict that when I do, I'm gonna read some of the things that you just sort of voiced in his piece, because the enabling us to be more human is one of those, I think, those special features that it takes a certain perspective to sort of, I think, to recognize that this is a possibility. Yeah. It's like that third option I mentioned earlier, where you get AI's taking care of the basic stuff and frees you up to do stuff, but then what do you do with that time? And do you use it for the betterment of yourself and of your company and of, as you say, for humanity? I mean, that's very highfalutin stuff. And I'm on board. I think it would be, if that happens at scale, we're in a good place.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we will, but and the whole thing feels like, what was that movie Cars that came out with Pixar, Cars?
Yeah.
Where you say, like, you got to, what is it? Turn right to bank left. I'm getting this all wrong, but I'm sure
it's true though. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
It's just counterintuitive to the way we're thinking. Like, wait a minute, care about people? Like, wait a minute, more than the profit, something like that. Like, it seems so foreign to think about it in that way. And then that kind of begs the question of, why is that so foreign? Right? Like, how do we get here in that way?
And look, ultimately that though is going to have to yield some kind of measurable positive effect for a company's investors, for a company's employees, right? And well, clearly, if you're nice to one, it's really good for the employees. Investors might have a different kind of feeling about it, and it would take bravery for a CEO or for a board to say, it's all right, we're gonna reduce we're gonna bank on or risk our stock price, because we feel it's right to invest in this right now. But there has to be because in 6 months, a year from now, we're going to be doing even better because it's it will boost our value.
Yeah.
That has to happen, right?
It's going to get more messy before it gets better. But I hope it does. I hope it does. Because if you think about all the things that we used to believe in the past, we wouldn't think that way today.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping our thoughts of today are things of the future that you're like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, true. I mean, it's easy to over-index on some things in the short term. We have to do some calibration and experimenting until we figure out, the argument can be made that we've over-indexed on remote work, or the argument can be made that we've over-indexed. Just, it works for some, but on the whole, we've over-indexed on this whole idea of the employee as a family. We've over-indexed on a lot on the idea of giving the employee everything that they want to make them happy, because their ultimate goal is happiness. The ultimate goal is not happiness, right? And I think this is another concept that I know you and I talked about this a little bit, but this is another concept that goes hand in hand with the changing nature of corporate culture, and certainly as companies come to grips with the changes that are going to happen as a result of AI and other things, it changes their processes, it changes everything. I think it would be a surefire way to directly to the madhouse if your executive team, your leadership team was trying to, get on board with AI, understand, the productivity benefits, get understanding of how all of this is going to ultimately accrue to the bottom line. And at the same time, make sure our employees are always, always happy, because those things cannot happen all at once. If you have if you think that happiness, right, all at once, if you think that happiness is the number one thing, because happiness, you can make an employee happy by doubling their salary and giving them a 20-hour work week. That's going to be a happy employee for a while. Some employees,
maybe.
Certainly some employees would like that.
Is an interesting perspective. And I think as humans, happiness, it might be the goal that we all want, but it's probably not, because we're, as humans, we like drama. And so I think if we're too happy, I think we'll create some kind of drama in our lives just to have it.
And we also
because it's It's boring otherwise.
It is boring, right? But we also like, we also like to create things and contribute and say, I'm proud of myself or proud of my friends and proud of my colleagues for this. We like this. We like to point to something and say, I was part of the group and this is my tribe that did this. And sometimes, we individually, and again, armchair psychologist here, I know nothing, but we individually kind of suppress or willingly kind of sacrifice happiness for the good of the group all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look,
that probably affects our happiness in a way as well. There's a fulfillment there.
There's a joy that comes from that, which is different from happiness. And, if the corporate culture is changing, if the purpose of companies is changing, et cetera, as time goes on, maybe we really need to have another serious discussion with people about what you think happiness is at work and why you think you're entitled to it or not, And part of that's this whole family concept, right? And I think it's cool to talk about it with you because, this is you're working with internal comms and kind of helping culture to build cultures. And just reminded me that recently I saw a note from the Netflix CEO to his teams saying basically, you're not a family. Stop thinking like you're a family. These people who you work with are not your family. Your family's your family, right? Instead, you have to think of your coworkers and of our company as a team. And you want to make sure that you include the people on your team who are the best performers and who can actually take our team to the win. Very sportsy. And I think he said and I'm bastardizing it a little bit, but I think he said that, we need to look around and have this kind of keep or don't keep exercise where it's like, if you're picking a team, do you keep this person on the team or do you not sure? No, I don't keep them. And if you're not sure that you want this person to be on the team, we got to rip off the Band-Aid and let them go. Let them go and find a new team. Harsh. I get it. Netflix can do a lot because they're like a multi-quadrillion, gajillion dollar company.
Yeah.
And in no danger of folding today. But, what does that mean though? Like, what does that mean for writ large for all the companies that are downstream? And when I say downstream, I mean downstream of trends, not downstream of them, but tech and big companies, sometimes they set the trend. All the companies downstream of trend that are still so 3 years ago and saying, bring your authentic self to work and everybody's a family and huggy, lovey.
Yeah.
There's going to be a ripple effect. And I think AI is going to actually push it forward. So where are you on this?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I agree that I can't sit here and consider us a family. I mean, I love coworkers, enjoy their company and everything like that, but we're not bound by blood, the way, other family members are and whatnot. We choose to work together as opposed to being born into living together. And, so I agree. I think there is that aspect of we can't sit here and say we're a family because someone could leave on their own or because of us or for whatever reason, and that's cool. I do care about, while they're here, their experience and what it's like to be part of this team because it has to feel good no matter what. I think the part that you talked about was look to the people around you, and if you wouldn't, if they're not working out, that we have to rip the Band-Aid off fast. Agree with that in part.
Yeah.
I do agree that we have to always look at ourselves and kind of look at, all right, where could things go wrong? Who's kind of dropping the ball? Who, things like that. But I think we do have to address it as well because otherwise it almost starts feeling like, a game of Survivor. It's Survivor, right? It's not, it's that's not what this is. This is not a competition. And I think I've seen companies have a really abysmal culture because everyone is too busy competing with each other than to be competing outside.
Yeah.
Right. So back to the team analogy, if the football team were too busy kind of fighting each other, they're not playing the game against their opponents, their real opponents, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful on how you kind of pit people against each other in an organization, because it could turn really bad really quickly, especially when you're something so massive, right? Like a Netflix or a massive company, where it doesn't become apparent, especially to leaders, especially to the CEO, because all that stuff happens, at different levels and side conversations and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we have to be careful of just how we treat people. So I think if I kind of go with it as like, whether you're performing high or performing low, we want to work with you to get to where we think you should be, or you think you should be. And if not, we want to help you go to find the next thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, let's talk about it. Because I think like the recruiting, I didn't know you were a recruiter, by the way, back in the day. So was I. So yeah, the aspect of recruiting, interviewing, bringing someone on, and then the aspect of letting people go, those are kind of two really interesting and seemingly traumatic experiences that we all have. How can we make both of those experiences less traumatic?
Yeah.
Right. And then that's where it comes from, is this kind of concept that me as a leader have, like, could just point at somebody and say, you're fired. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I don't think we should just, look at another human being and just fired.
Yeah.
I think we have to work with folks to move them across. And first of all, like, if you have someone on a team that you're like that quick to fire, you have to first look at their hiring practices and where that came from, which probably takes us all the way back to the job descriptions
for sure
and stuff like that, which is probably a whole other episode that we should think about in the future.
Well, yeah, it certainly is. But I kind of wanted to go a little bit in that direction, just a bit, because like, you got to figure, right? You're one of the ways to reduce trauma in that experience is by reframing the experience as not familial. Like, if you think you're with the family and then you get fired, that's a serious trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a second. I thought all these people were my family. I thought they loved me. I've just got I got stabbed in the back, or, whatever. That betrayed. Estranged. Terrible, right? And, it's hard enough to separate from a company. And even if you're a great team player and things are going well, sometimes it doesn't happen for you because, like, the environment changes and, you got to go. And there is that, there's a whole undercurrent of we are all replaceable in a company. Like, we are. There's always somebody who can do similar job, but they might not do it the same way. They may take it, but there's always something. We're all replaceable. That said, we're part of the reason we're replaceable is because somewhere in the files, the dark, I picture it as like an X-Files-y type room with a pull-out aluminum cabinet, some guy smoking a cigarette, like opening and riffling through these files. Somewhere in those files is a box, is a form with check boxes and things like this that says what I do. That is where there's a fundamental problem. And like, if I'm thinking about it as a team, and I have, like, I'm bringing the team together, and I'm having I'm in that Netflix kind of culture where it's like, all right, do we keep this person? Do we lose this person? There's got to be a chance or like an opportunity when you're kind of talking to somebody who may not be a keeper right now, maybe a lower round draft pick, whatever, but you're like, and you're willing to put your reputation and your own job on the line for it. But, like, there's got to be a moment where that person can then raise their hand and say, look, you're right. I'm not a really great power forward, but my God, can I do super well for you as a guard? Because, look, like, I know I'm mixing sports. I'm not a sports guy, but the point is, right?
I didn't even catch that one.
I mean, but the point is, right? This is where now the enterprising individual has this ability to build their own kind of career. And there's an example that I heard from our friend Ethan, right? Ethan McCarty. Ethan's talking about an employee who has, again, in smaller companies, this is much more possible, but, an employee who has essentially created her own ecosystem of tools and technologies and AI, et cetera, that she's like a one-person band, right? She can do all sorts of different things that even 3 years ago, a 20-something-year-old could not even think about doing. She has, she has her core job, but she also has now operational capabilities. She has analytical capabilities. She has all these other things built it around her. This is only going to get better and for all of us if you're able to do that. But how do you put this person in a job description? That's you can't.
Yeah.
Just got to build their own.
It's fundamentally strange. In fact, I'll share another quick story. I was consulting with an organization, and they were looking at looking to build a team, and they're having trouble finding people for the roles and stuff like that. And then finally there was a few people that stepped up and said I'm really interested in this, and oh wow, we need that. And someone else I'm really interested in this, and we're oh wow, we really need that. And then I was cool, we're starting to pull together the team. And then I was kind of I was talking with the head there, and they were oh, that's great that these people are involved. So here's the job description, and I'm going to orient them to the job description. And I was oh, wait a second. They just raised their hand that they were passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to take that and kind of meld it in with a whole bunch of other things that you want. And it was one of the, this was a true story not too long ago. And it just really got me thinking of how we're just trained to think of putting people into these job descriptions or boxes. And I'm just but this person really wants to do this. That now, granted, there might be things within this job description that they might enjoy doing. And in another side, you might be smothering this passion that they have.
Yeah.
By kind of not focusing on it. So let's kind of grow this aspect and think about a career as in not here's what you do for the rest of, this year until you get your promotion or whatnot. But you know what? Let's start here. And then let's build upon that. Let's just constantly keep building upon it around your passions, around the things that you enjoy doing, because you're going to be stronger and you're going to be more fulfilled doing the things you enjoy doing. And you're going to feel good about the organization that's supporting you, right? You said we both said earlier how career paths are all squiggly lines.
Yeah.
Right. But in a corporation, it's just boxes and stuff like that. But what if an organization could squiggly line around with you?
Yeah.
And set that in motion in a good way? How'd that feel?
And how would that feel? And I'm not entirely optimistic that the current structure of especially HR, and I'm not villainizing HR, believe me, because I love a lot of HR people and they've been wonderful friends of mine.
I love HR people too.
But the fact is that even when I was a manager or when I was a leader, and you're looking to promote somebody, there's these forms to fill out. There's okay, what's the new job description look like? Okay, what's the midpoint of the salary for that particular job description in this particular market? It's there are no answers really to these questions. So maybe it's more maybe there's a because something you were just saying just made me think for some reason of Legos, right? So you've got you've got your core job description, right? You got your core job description. That's the duck. Anybody can build a Lego duck, right? So you have a box of Legos. It takes 6 or 8 Legos to build a duck, something like this. But when you start your job, you have a box of 40 or 50 or 60 Legos.
Yeah.
And within a short amount of time, you can reconstruct the duck, you can make a better duck, you can build a car. I don't know what it is, but I think that's sort of what AI does for you in your career.
That kind of makes sense, right? It does. It kind of helps you build whatever you need to build, right? Because building it seems to now become easy. It's what to build, what to do.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing. And that's, so I'll actually also say about job descriptions. I don't hate job descriptions either, for everyone listening. We use job descriptions. I use job descriptions as a communication piece, as here's the base of what we're expecting.
Yeah.
But I still do look at it, just like you're saying, let's add Legos on top of that. So it's not, and I say in my job descriptions that it's not to say that you're going to do all of this all together at once at the same time either, right? Because that's important to know. But as far as where this is going, it's the ability to build it has become really easy. the was like the ability to build it has become easier, but our job descriptions are still rooted on here's how you build it, right? You got to send this press release every this, respond to these media things, right? The thing I look at most, and one thing I incorporate in all of our job descriptions, is the overarching problem you're solving or the overarching goal that you're trying to achieve for the organization. Because, right?
Yeah.
It's like teaching somebody how to play chess. You got to win the game, but I can't tell you how to move the pieces generally, because as soon as your opponent takes the first step, like, everything changes.
Yeah.
So in that way, a job description can't tell you how to exactly do your job, but I think it should relay to you what you need to achieve, what you're responsible for, and then leave it up to you to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're talking earlier about like performers and things like that, I've been in situations where like somebody that I work with did something that I was like, I wouldn't have done that. That's wrong. I should step in. I should figure that out. And then I just stop for a moment and be like, wait a minute. What if it works? What if I'm wrong? I said, let me let that go and see what happens. And it's the one story I'm thinking about in my mind worked out super well, better than I had thought, better than if I had interjected. So if we're kind of like, looking at just managers to like look at people and be like, bang, you're fired, bang, you're fired. There's nothing like looking at me to say like, where am I skeptical of my own thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Earlier on, you talked about mindfulness. So really like understanding, where is this coming from? Where is this fear coming from? And is it real? Is it a fact? Or is it just a fear? Because fear is not real.
Yeah.
Right? Fear
is you choose. It's a choice, right?
Choose. Danger is real, but fear is out there. So those are the things I think about. It does take a really different way of thinking. And I think over the multi-generations that we've all been, that humans have been in the workforce, we've been trained and we've been just we're like in the Matrix in a way.
Yeah,
right? Like
true.
Some of us will fight to stay in the Matrix because the steak tastes so good.
Absolutely. You're right. And it's a great way to think about it. There's, the last thing that I'll say, because I did want to, boy, does this really, really have some implications?
I'm sorry if I talk too much.
No, I'm the one who I'm sure when I put this through Firefly, it's going to give me a percentage of my talking. I'm going to be like, shit, talk too much again. But
good. I came to listen to you. So
no, the point I was trying to get to is okay, we've been talking about job descriptions. Like we have so much change happening around us all the time. We have the advent of AI. We have all this, we don't know what's going to happen next week. You said earlier, today is the worst day that we've ever seen with AI. You're absolutely right. Like it's, or that we will ever see with AI. That's what Paul Reitzer, who heads up the Marketing AI Institute, always says. I mean, I hear this all the time. Today is the worst AI you will ever see. It's absolutely true. By the transitive property, I suppose, is it the transitive property? The users of AI, right, are also currently the worst users of AI that you will ever see. So there's there's so much that's going to keep changing.
Yes.
In that respect, right, even in the world of comms, we're so used to creating these yearly plans and, our budgets and blah, 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 and so on. And, I've always had discomfort with that simply because it's hard for me to maintain my attention for a year. But now though, there's a legitimate excuse, which is that I don't know that we won't be able to do 100 times more content in 3 months. Maybe we will.
Yeah. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah. So when that opens up,
good content, that's another story. But But for what you're trying to do, I've seen people automate like amazing things.
Yeah, and that's just one example. So how do you plan? Like you don't plan for a year. I think now we have to plan for 60 to 90 days, and that's it. And when you're planning for these short kind of sprints, right? How can you possibly also hold people accountable to a 1-year goal? Right? It's sort of a little broken to me. And now let's put a pin in that because that's a whole nother conversation. But before we go, because we are kind of up on it here, I love talking to Pinaki. We could just keep going in any number of directions. But final thoughts about this kind of corporate culture of the future. Like, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think companies and communicators, et cetera, really need to be on top of right now to surf this wave of change?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Specifically in the realms of internal comms, right?
Yeah.
And companies, I think I need to.
It's an open question.
Yeah, no, it's an open question. It reminds me of for a podcast, Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work? We took it on. We did a first time ever what we call the unpanel discussion, where basically the audience at the conference, they were essentially the panel. So we kind of posed certain like questions to them and things like
Ooh,
that.
I love it.
But we started by asking them like to group up by table and say what feels wrong at work, right? And so like the number one thing came up across the room is this concept of reactive proactive thing, right? Like right now they're always running, always reactive, and they're getting more and more added to their plate and feeling hesitant to say no, right? I think that's one of the things that's I think happening right now. I think mindfulness for leaders, I think, is going to be really important to say to yourself, I have this idea, I think we should implement it, but let me check on my people first, right? Let me check on what are you doing right now around this, and could we put this into the slate for the future? More times than not, I'm hearing like, oh, I just got this idea, or I just heard this from this book I read. We got to do this now. We got to do this now, and we got to do this now. And then if every leader is doing this to kind of probably prove their mark, and also to like kind of substantiate their like several years in that organization while they're kind of gearing up for the next thing and stuff like that, you're kind of leaving this mess behind. And you're leaving people at this place where they are getting burned out. They're not equipped. It's not safe enough for them to say no, because I know the best internal communicators or the best communicators or strategists that I know, if you give them something like this, they'll let you know that, all right, this is doable, this, and this is not doable based on what we have. So if you don't set up that right environment where people could tell you what's doable and not doable, you're setting yourself up, the organization up, and your people up for failure.
Yeah.
I might have gone all around in different ways, but I think if that's one thing that came up that was super loud and clear during this panel discussion or unpanel discussion.
And I think it's one of those things that doesn't matter what happens with technology. It takes mindfulness and confidence, right? Bravery to really do what's best for you and your team, and to fulfill your job as a communicator. I think it's totally true. I'm eager to see how AI may help us do that. Not to do the actual bravery for us, but to give us enough headspace that we're able to kind of think about it.
I could totally see it. We're working on it on the product side too. It was like, one day I'll be able to like, hey, how busy is Daniel Nestle, and can he take on this extra project?
Oh yeah.
It should
be able to tell you. Yeah.
It should be able to tell you.
Yeah. I mean,
that's far off.
Some recent guests of mine have talked about some very specialized AI applications they're doing in the area of leadership. And there's something called Alex, which is a virtual coach, right? So you can check in with Alex, and Alex becomes your AI coach, and you can be sort of talking through your leadership skills with Alex. And of course, it's just like baseline stuff. Another person, Deirdre Breckenridge, she was talking about, that was David Albertin, by the way. And Deirdre Breckenridge is talking about facial recognition for emotional communications using an AI recognition kind of tool. And it's these different things are helping us with leadership, right? But fundamentally, we're the ones that have to be on top of the when to say no, when to say yes. It's such a hard skill and such a hard kind of habit to develop.
Manage up to like leadership as well.
Yeah.
Just be able to like say things like that. But those are something, there's a lot of things that we could talk about in that realm. But that's kind of one of the things that kind of popped up in my head because it was just last week.
Yeah.
And it was the number one thing that came out, and we had an amazing conversation about it.
Interesting. Yeah. And wait, what was that? What'd you just say? Did you just say burn the entire organizational structure and create an entire new org chart? Is that what you said? Oh, I don't know. No, I thought I heard a little bird whisper.
Before. Have you ever read the Valve handbook, employee handbook? It came out. This was years ago, probably like 7-8 years ago. Have you ever heard of it? Valve is a video game company.
No, I didn't.
But they have a total like flat structure. There is no organization structure. People just kind of clump up into projects as they wish, and very successful video game company.
Yeah.
Curious to see how it works out. But and it was fascinating to me at the time. The handbook was all illustration, as if it was like a Lego instructions.
Oh, sweet.
It was all, so it was super easy and stuff like that. And
yeah,
look it up, Valve handbook.
I'll look it up, Valve handbook. But I would imagine that there's a critical mass beyond
there is a critical mass, because at some point it turns into a popularity contest. Yeah. There's isolationism. There's things that happen with the lack of governance as well.
Yeah.
So interesting.
We can't turn our back on the essential human aspects of being human, the tribal aspects that we have, the social structures that we seek. It happens the bigger you get, the more kind of tribal we do end up getting. That was a Gladwell point, I think, from long time ago with the tipping point. But anyway, this has been awesome. I can continue to talk with you, Pinaki, anytime, and I'm sure I will. But for now, everybody out there, if you are looking for Pinaki, check him out on LinkedIn. His name is Pinaki Kathiari, and his name will be spelled properly in the episode title. You can also check out localwisdom.com to see Pinaki's company. It's great. First of all, it's a cool website. I love the way that you do your bios with icons and kind of like little cool blurbs. Like, okay, I don't need to read through 4 paragraphs of who Pinaki is. I can see that he likes to travel to India, and he's got he likes science fiction, and I get it. Just by looking at your little icons for a second. But check it out, localwisdom.com. And I suppose Resource Hero as well. Check out Resource Hero. Is that resourcehero.com?
Resourcehero.com.
Resourceheroapp.com. Anything else, Pinaki, that I've missed? That, IABC, check out the IABC. Anything else?
Yeah, you check out everything I'm a part of. No, nothing that you've missed, Dana. Thank you for having me on the show. And also thank you for just the great conversations that we always have. Like, it's one of those things where, like, you're one of those folks where we could probably do this for hours and hours and never get bored.
I am sure that everybody could tell when they're listening. So, Pinaki, thanks. You're going to come back again. I mean, I know you will. So Absolutely. This is not goodbye, but it's certainly like, we'll chat again later. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, sir. See you later. Be well.
Thanks for taking the time to listen in on today's conversation. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe through the podcast player of your choice, share with your friends and colleagues, and leave me a review. 5 stars would be preferred, but it's up to you. Do you have ideas for future guests, or you want to be on the show? Let me know at dan@trendingcommunicator.com. Thanks again for listening to the Trending Communicator.